The year 2024 saw tremendous gains in the educational sector, including the huge transformation of 4 secondary schools into full-fledged TVET centers. The year also saw great strides in innovation within the education sector, highlighted by efforts put into the new education sector plan. Additionally, this was a year characterized by continued support from the government, with the trailblazing One University per Household initiative soaring to new heights. Government further increased the potential of citizens by giving them many more scholarships to achieve higher education. Some groundbreaking developments took place in the human resources area and also in the world of special education during the past year. Let us relive those steps that have marked a significant change in the landscape of education and lit a lamp for a brighter future ahead. Staff and students of the Suffolk Comprehensive Secondary School expressed their appreciation for the construction of a temporary wing to house various technical and vocational classes.
The arts and the skills have come together. They marry emotion with ability. And we take pride at SCSS in fulfilling our mission of ensuring the full development of each child through the collaborative effort of all stakeholders.
Months after launching a digital content platform, the Ministry of Education through CAMDO engaged teachers in the effective use of the content for enhancing classroom instruction, including the area of Jolly Phonics.
During the implementation of the pilot, there will be close monitoring. Support will be provided by the curriculum officers out of CAMDO. And at the end of the pilot period, there will be a post-pilot survey.
Education Minister Honorable Sean Edward early in the year highlighted the importance of dialogue and buy-in with stakeholders within the education system in creating a harmonious environment for learning. The minister's comments came as ministry officials met with the National Principals Association and was preparing to meet with other stakeholders.
We cannot stay in our air-conditioned offices on the waterfront and program and plan for what happens in schools. The principals and the teachers, they are really the operational personnel in the system, and they are the ones who would give expression to a lot of the policies that we formulate as a government, as a ministry.
And one of the things we agreed on, that there's need for looking at a time frame where certain projects are accomplished within a period of time.
A school supervision retreat held in January focused mainly on the collective aspirations of those charged with the supervision of the education sector, fostered through dialogue, collaboration and shared vision in order to shape the future of education within St. Lucia and the wider region.
Empowering our leaders is not just a slogan. It is a commitment to nurturing the potential within each of you.
Remember, our influence extends beyond the walls of the schools, beyond the district offices. We serve the public.
Education Minister Honorable Sean Edward pledged continued support to uniformed groups like the St. Lucia Cadet Corps in playing the significant role in the development of the country and indeed the lives of young St. Lucians.
A dearth in the activities of specialized groups in our country has in part contributed to the breakdown of discipline in young people in this country.
Malice, compassion.
The Central Library for the second straight year staged its literary festival along with a showcase of products from budding entrepreneurs. Called LitFest, the festival was held in commemoration of Nobel Laureate Week. Awards were once again presented to top performers in various areas when the Ministry of Education hosted another National Awards of Excellence. Awards were presented in the areas of special education, CXC, CSEC, CAPE, and top performers in the various divisions of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. The event also honored students who have excelled in the areas of sports, arts, and academics, as well as educators for their outstanding service in education on the island. 19 primary schools under this phase of the OECS Pearl have received grant funding of 15,000 EC dollars to tackle specific areas within their school environment which can be improved to positively affect learning at the various institutions.
It starts with a keyword continuous or continual, which means that whatever that we learn now with this $15,000 grant, it is something that is going to be looked at and it's something that's going to be copied going forward.
Primary schools in Dennery North benefited from a UNESCO-funded steel pan program. The program received its official launch at a handing over ceremony held at the Denia River Combined School, one of the recipients of the program.
And the project was approved by UNESCO in light of its intersectoral nature, as it cuts across a number of UNESCO thematic areas, including culture, skills training, and youth development.
Local early childhood educators joined their counterparts from Dominica, Grenada, and St. Vincent as part of a Leaders Forum of the OECS Program for Educational Advancement and Relevant Learning, the OECS Pearl Project, focusing on understanding and supporting young children with autism spectrum disorder.
It's something we have been struggling with as a sector, and post-COVID, we have indeed seen a marked increase with the number of children who exhibit cognitive, sensory, emotional challenges.
A two-day meeting of the Caribbean Association of National Training Agencies, or CANTA, ended in St. Lucia with a renewed call for uniform standards within the Caribbean region as far as technical and vocational education and training, or TVET, was concerned, especially in relation to the free flow of skilled workers within the CSME.
Because right across this Caribbean, we have high youth unemployment, we have gangs, and we have relentless youth criminal activity taking place.
Pilot schools of a pre-kindergarten initiative under the OECS Pearl Project are now in operation following work accomplished over the past 2 years for the establishment of the new school level within the government school structure.
This component focuses on increasing access to early childhood and supporting our very important learners with special needs.
We know of the disparities that exist in families, at the community level, and even at the level of the school. And people are quick to tell you all the schools are the same. They are the same in terms of the curriculum. But we know there's so many other factors in the wider community that can impact what happens at school.
The improvement of technical vocational education and training, TVET, in St. Lucia reached a significant milestone with the graduation of a select group of TVET instructors following intense CVQ and life-saving training in cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, and automated external defibrillator, AED.
This ensures that our students being trained in CVQs and NVQs will be assessed in order to be certified themselves.
Key technical teams from the 4 Windward Islands met in St. Lucia to advance their work on a partnership compact funded by the Global Partnership for Education, GPE, to help transform education within the sub-regional grouping.
Systems transformation will be effectively actioned by inclusive and resilient strategies, innovative policies, and sustainable funding.
Special needs schools from across the island converged on the La Ressource playing field for a sports meet with a difference. The annual event organized by the Special Education Unit was held on Down Syndrome Day, bringing with it deeper awareness of the condition.
It is a wonderful thing when children with special needs can engage in sporting activities. School does not only build the mind of a student, but it builds the body, it builds their coordination, it builds every aspect of them.
Work to transform 4 secondary schools into full-fledged technical and vocational education and training TVET-centered schools was said to be progressing smoothly. TVET and plant and equipment units visited the 4 schools, namely Angers Secondary, Grand River Secondary, Prairie Secondary, and Stanley John Odler Memorial Secondary Schools.
The students who will be attending those schools, or who are already attending some of these schools, they will be on a career pathway. So there will be solid support for them, both in terms of their training needs, training them towards occupational areas, as well as an emphasis on developing the whole child.
We know that in recent years we've been facing some significant challenges with termites and termite infestation. We have tried to move away from using timber and using PVC board and concrete together. These are both materials that are highly resistant to any type of termite infestation.
A recently held meeting between Education Minister Honorable Sean Edward and cooks under the school feeding program was being seen as a step in the right direction for improving the program and to ensure that it is sustained for years to come.
And the education system can only be successful when we deliver to society children of a particular quality that will make a difference in their communities and by extension to society.
St. Lucia benefited from a USAID project aimed at addressing the high rates of crime and violence in the eastern and southern Caribbean region. An orientation exercise was held for the initiative being dubbed the Wairi Ignite Project.
And so the programming that we're designing right now is really specifically looking at reducing those risk factors and creating a kind of support network around the youth so that they have the best possible chance of negotiating those risks, mitigating the impact of the risks, and being, and leveraging their own assets, their own abilities to be able to thrive in the world.
A multi-agency initiative has ensured rehabilitation of sporting grounds at the St. Mary's College. Funding for the project in the amount of just over $198,000 was sourced by MP for Castries North, Honorable Stevenson King. Of that total, $100,000 came from the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan, $68,500 from the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, $15,000 from the First National Bank, and $15,000 from the St. Mary's College alumni. A venture which seeks to increase vocational training opportunities for marginalized youth in St. Lucia has led to the construction of a catering and hospitality facility in Cul-de-sac for the Center for Adolescent Renewal and Education, or CARE, through the Government of India and the International Labour Organization, the ILO.
The marginalized youth will use opportunities provided through the upgradation of the skills in this institute to obtain better employment or to be self-employed, which would add to their own and by extension the country's economic growth.
An increase in opportunities to develop technical skills in youth island-wide has been initiated through an accord between the Taiwan Technical Mission and the National Skills Development Center, the NSDC. Dubbed as specialized programs and opportunities relating to technical skills or sports, the initiative is expected to fuel the dreams of nationals through education. The exemplary performance of 3 young students who sat last year's CPEA exams has resulted in their selection for this year's presentation of scholarships by telecommunications provider Digicel. The 3 students, all children of employees within the education sector, were presented with $1,000 in cash, a mobile phone with 1 year of free data service, and a laptop computer. The continuation of the scholarship will be dependent on the performance of the students at their various secondary schools. The start of May marked the commencement of a month-long calendar of activities dedicated to encouraging children and adults alike to increase their exploration of books throughout Reading Month 2024. Subsidized by Hodder Education, the launch for the annual observance was held under the theme, Changing the World by Harnessing the Power of Reading.
It can teach us empathy, challenge our assumptions. It can empower us to think critically and act courageously. It is a bridge that connects us to new ideas, distant lands, and different perspectives.
The library stands as a beacon of knowledge, a sanctuary for learning, and a cornerstone for personal and collective or community growth.
When I come here, you'll run and you'll hug me.
It is a camp where mathematics will now be perceived as being possible.
A grandmother's love at a beneath.
For thou not know thy true nature?
There can be one university graduate per household in St. Lucia.
And now, let's take a look back at the happenings in the world of sustainable development for 2024.
St. Lucia definitely registered several sustainable development and environment activities and achievements for the year, many of which I'd say are competing in significance. We hit the ground running in 2024, January to be exact, with legislating St. Lucia's posture on yet another global environmental challenge. And to speak with me on this and some of the other labors emerging from the Department of Sustainable Development is the incoming Chief Sustainable Development and Environment Officer, Mrs. Dawn Pierre Nathaniel. Thank you, DPN, for being here.
Thank you so much, Jessie. It's really a pleasure.
Wonderful. So in January, we passed the Climate Change Act. Tell us a little bit about that in terms of St. Lucia's sustainable future for carbon emissions reduction.
It was really good to have that act passed. It's been many years in the making. And what it does is that it enshrines the international instruments, the climate change instruments, into national legislation. So now we have a framework for addressing climate change, for dealing with climate action in terms of adaptation, mitigation, loss and damage. It has clear roles for the Department of Sustainable Development as climate change focal point, clear roles for the National Climate Change Committee as an advisory body for climate change. And it's really a model for the region.
Wonderful. And speaking of climate, the National Adaptation Planning process, I know it continued this year with getting a shot in the arm from the Green Climate Fund, the project launched to help us really prepare and be ready for implementation of that. Tell us a little bit more about the activities and areas of focus.
Yes, indeed, the National Adaptation Plan, the NAP, we have 8 areas of focus that stakeholders have decided are priority areas for St. Lucia. and we were able to set up the actions that are required in those areas. And we have 8 SASAPs, Sectoral Adaptation Strategies and Action Plans. We've actually done 5 of them in collaboration with the entities that are responsible for the areas of focus. And we now have a remaining 3 under this project, that is education, infrastructure and spatial planning, and tourism. And we will move right ahead next year with the other 2. So that puts us in a good place in terms of building climate resilience in those sectors. Further to the other aspects on the project to deal with areas such as the private sector, limits to adaptation, as well as dealing with coastal modeling and hazards, sea level rise and storms.
Wonderful. And work has also begun on St. Lucia submitting a more ambitious nationally determined contribution for 2025 in 2024. Tell us about some of the activities so far in planning.
Yes, we have had a number of consultations with stakeholders in terms of our NDC 3.0, our nationally determined contribution. Again, this document sets our tone in terms of what the country is planning to do in terms of emission reduction, but also in terms of adaptation. But more specifically, emission reduction, focusing specifically on transport sector as well as energy. And we want to be able to have an even more ambitious NDC than what was submitted in 2020. And we are working with a team from Climate Analytics to help us in managing this. And we expect to be able to make that submission in the first quarter of 2025. And we will be one of the first, or if not the first, for the OECS.
I was about to ask. Wonderful. So moving on to the next climate matter, post-COP29 this year, we can touch a little bit on it, but it was definitely, our spirits were definitely lifted post-COP by the delivery of our St. Lucian delegation to the International Court of Justice in their arguments during the public hearings to ensure, in the hopes that we can have more countries who emit consequential, have consequential emissions, carbon emissions, to fairly contribute towards vulnerable countries, sustainable, small island developing states. Tell us a little bit about that argument going forward, led by our legal officer here at the Department of Sustainable Development. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was really proud to see them on that stage because, of course, we fight climate change on a number of levels. We fight climate change in terms of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, science. We fight climate change in terms of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement. Yes. That's technically and politically. And we're now able to fight it in the international courts. And we had our legal officer here, as well as 2 other female St. Lucian lawyers fighting in the International Court of Justice, and specifically looking at the area of how countries are obligated, their obligations in terms of protecting the climate system and the legal responsibilities as a result of the impacts. So the impassioned pleas, I hope, were heard, and they, along with other developing countries, and there were about 100 oral hearings during that period, really pushed forward, and we're looking forward to having the outcome of this hearing, which will be, again, in the first quarter of 2025. So really looking forward to that, and they did a really good job.
Oh, wonderful. Before we wrap up this climate conversation, a climate-related project for St. Lucia, it really made huge waves, the Youth in Climate Change project for 2024. Tell us a little bit about that, spearheaded by our NDC in-country facilitator.
That was really an underground project for us, working with the youth in St. Lucia. We were able to work with and train about 9 youth leaders in terms of understanding climate change and being able, therefore, to impart that knowledge in terms of climate change and the nationally determined contribution, the NDC, to the 26 secondary schools around the island. So they were able to deliver to some 800 students. We were also able to place 11 students, interns from Sir Arthur Lewis Community College in organizations around St. Lucia, again to help them to build their capacity and understanding of being in the workforce, but also specifically looking at climate policies, climate action, and environment in general. So that was another accomplishment. We further were able to procure a number of LED lighting efficient bulbs and had that distributed to the 26 secondary schools, where they signed pledges to indicate the actions they will continue to take as a school or as the schools around the island in terms of climate action, and further procured another another set for all of the special education schools on the island. And we were able to do a lot under this project. And it was really good to see the impassioned involvement of those students in this initiative.
I know we started off this review with climate-related matters, but the Department of Sustainable Development is laden with work program areas like the sustainable consumption and production area. Management of the beverage containers bill tied into the draft national policy on disposal of plastic beverage containers. Stakeholder engagement continued into this year. What's the update on this?
We are working specifically in the area of single-use plastics, and we were able to complete our national policy for the beverage containers, but also to have the beverage containers bill along with that policy. And all of that is looking towards being able to have better management of single-use plastics over time, really building on our efforts to date and being able to preserve our island in terms of all of the benefits that come with not having single-use plastics in the environment and all the health benefits associated as well.
Wonderful. In oceans governance, the blue economy presents a transformative opportunity for small island developing states like St. Lucia. What has been the groundwork this year in capitalizing on this?
We were able to have an initiative that is a Coastal Master and Marine Spatial Plan that was adopted by the Cabinet of Ministers this year. We had a number of interventions that we could be implementing, but we were able to zoom down to 15 of them in various areas, from climate resilience, distribution of wealth, economic growth, and so on. And we want to be able to use that plan to work with the OECS Commission and other partners to attract investment in those areas of the blue economy to take advantage of it, not only for environmental well-being, but also for economic well-being, for job creation, and so on.
Wonderful. Our North and Southeast Coast projects, they fall under the Biodiversity Work Program area. Tell us a little bit about what happened this year for those.
Biodiversity, of course, remains very important to us, plants, animals, their interactions, and so on. So we have the Northeast Coast Project and the Southeast Coast Project. They have a number of areas where we're looking at dealing with ecosystem management, but also rehabilitation. So looking at being able to provide food, being able to do sustainable agriculture, water conservation, flood and storm protection, carbon sequestration, for example. But also importantly, the aspect of the livelihoods is really significant for us for both of those areas. So for the Southeast Coast, for example, being able to work with the craft makers, being able to work with the small businesses in various aspects of food, whether you're talking about honey or local wines and so on, and the chocolates, for example, and really looking at how we can work with the communities in terms of taking the environment, dealing with the protection conservation aspect, but also delving deeply into livelihoods and sustainability.
And the Department of Sustainable Development scope of work is certainly wider. Do take a look at some of these other highlights from this year.
The government of St. Lucia demonstrated its commitment to maintaining the outstanding universal value of the Pitons Management Area PMA by incorporating the limits of acceptable change LAC policy into law. The PMA also commemorated its 20th anniversary, demarcated 50% of its boundaries, and revised its management plan this year. In 2024, the National Ozone Unit within the department continued successful phase-out of ozone-depleting gases, called HCFCs, by more than 78%. The unit also launched the Kigali Implementation Plan on World Ozone Day. Through this plan, the Ozone Unit joins the climate fight to phase out HFCs, a group of greenhouse gases that have been relied on to replace ozone-depleting substances but contribute to global warming. And finally, the Supporting the Shift to Electric Mobility in St. Lucia project was launched in October. This initiative will accelerate the introduction of electric transport in-country, including the government's own fleet.
And this has been the roundup of 2024 for the Department of Sustainable Development.
2,049 students sat this year's Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment or CPEA examinations. With examination centers dispersed at multiple secondary schools on the island, Chief Education Officer Beverly Diodoni visited separate locations ahead of the start of exams.
More than 700 comments and suggestions were received.
The third phase of the equip-led stakeholder engagement concluded, and with it the overall public consultation that was a part of the thorough re-examination of St. Lucia's Education Act.
These provisions in this further updated iteration of the bill should enable the following, and we spoke about one, the expanded age range for education, expanded support for learners with special needs, an assets-based approach to education which builds on students' strengths rather than identifying and treating deficits.
Preparation for this new academic year was made easier for students residing in the Mabia Valley as their parents and guardians received monetary support on their behalf to purchase books and supplies. While a summer camp hosted by the St. Lucia TVET Council proved a source of education and entertainment for students in the Mabia Valley, the 2-week initiative sought to expose students to new skills while highlighting potential career paths. Stellar performance in educational pursuits proved a deciding factor in the selection of all 54 nationals who will complete studies abroad through scholarship programs, of which 14 are from Cuba, 35 from Taiwan, and 5 from Hungary.
I am extremely pleased as the Minister of Education, given where we are at as a country in terms of the higher education agenda that we are pushing in St. Lucia today. Our government places a premium on training and education.
Institutions of higher education operating in St. Lucia will now be subjected to an additional layer of scrutiny following the launch of the National Accreditation System. Implementation ensures students are able to be educated by institutions meeting internationally recognized standards of operation.
Any certificate awarded by a post-secondary training institution operating in St. Lucia is evidence that the awardee has received this certificate through transparent processes.
The Ignite Learning Business by Doing Business project ended with a graduation ceremony, a multi-phase initiative. 48 participants completed the 6-week-long Getting Ready phase, the first in a series of implementation stages. The Ministry of Education, through the Curriculum and Materials Development Unit CAMDU, held its 6th annual Physical Education and Sports Conference at the St. Lucia Sports Academy under the theme, Attaining Sustainable Development Goals Through Physical Education and Sport. Education Minister Honorable Sean Edwin called a meeting with ancillary staff, namely caretakers, watchmen, and janitors, to express his appreciation for the work they do and to discuss the challenges they encountered in performing their duties with a view to finding ideal solutions, much to the benefit of the education sector. An introductory meeting between the members of a newly elected executive body of the St. Lucia Teachers Union, Minister for Education Honorable Sean Edwin, and other ministry officials was hailed by representatives of both parties as a success.
We have brought to the fore many of the teachers' issues, many of the challenges that they face, and we are working with the Ministry of Education to ensure that with the reopening of school, that our teachers are working in safe and healthy environments, that their needs are being addressed.
The concerns are shared, the SLTU and the leadership of the Ministry of Education. And what is very important in all of this is that a lot of the budgetary requests we would have put through to the Ministry of Finance, they have been favorably considered by the Prime Minister, and I'm very excited with the ensuing academic year.
In an historic day of early childhood education in St. Lucia, government, ahead of the start of the new academic year, dished out checks to 105 registered centers, where each received $2,500 towards the management of their centers, a testament to government's commitment to developing the early childhood sector and indeed the nation's children.
But you are doing human service to the people of St. Lucia. You have the most important role to play in the development of the society.
Expanding efforts to enhance the national education system, a 2-day operational planning workshop for the implementation of the Education Sector Plan 2023 to 2028 was expected to provide clear guidelines on the process of further transforming the education sector.
Our Education Sector Plan guides our national efforts for realizing a resilient education sector that embraces inclusion, agility, and innovation within a learning environment that shapes the learner into a self-driven, globally adaptable individual who contributes meaningfully to the development of self, community, and region.
Team St. Lucia for the first Global Robotics represented the island in Athens, Greece in an Olympics of a different kind. The all-girls team and their robot were unveiled ahead of their trip to Greece. Each year, the first Global Challenge poses a grand challenge for youth of high school ages in an effort to inspire them to pursue their passions in science and technology. The challenges which affect school learners from achieving their full potential is being closely monitored with a view of strengthening systems within the local education sector that will allow both male and female students to achieve their very best.
It means that we have to bring those factors to the fore, understand what those factors are, what the assumptions underlying those factors are, and we need to explore ways that we can minimize the negative factors and amplify the positive factors.
A blend of curiosity and enthusiasm marked the participation of attendees at a 2-day St. Lucia College and Career Fair, with officials from participating institutions peppered with questions expected to guide short, medium, and long-term plans to attain tertiary education and enter the national workforce. Education District 3 is seeking new ways to inspire students' interest and progress in mathematics with the staging of the 2024 edition of its Mathematics Symposium under the theme Positive Perception for Progression in Mathematics Through Playing with Maths.
So, we need to serve the balanced mathematical meal in an ambience which will encourage the children. Every time we serve them a math meal, they're ready to eat the food.
287 St. Lucians celebrated their achievements at a graduation ceremony of the Monroe University held at the National Cultural Center, marking the completion of a 3-month no-cost training program. In partnership with the Ministry of Education, graduates successfully finished CVQ courses in bartending, community tourism, customer service, data operation, food and drink restaurant service, computer graphics, general office administration, and housekeeping. This initiative was part of the World Bank-funded Human Capital Resilience Project, which empowers participants to become entrepreneurs and significantly contribute to the national employment landscape. Further expansion with the Ministry of Education's Mandarin program was achieved with the inclusion of the VA4 Comprehensive Secondary School as the newest site for Mandarin tutoring, beginning with students in the first and second form. A consignment of textbooks was presented to the Southern School.
This first cohort of students registered a 100% pass, with 21 students, 19 girls and 2 boys, obtaining a Novice 2 level qualification, which is the upper band of the novice level, and 31 students, 21 girls and 10 boys obtaining a Novice 1 qualification, and 1 Chinese-speaking student obtaining an A1 level qualification, which is the band which is just above Novice.
Over 300 students graduated from the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, the SALCC, when the institution held another graduation ceremony at the Royalton Theatre. Education Minister Honorable Sean Edwin commended the college for producing quality model citizens that will enter the world of work to help develop and advance the country. Noting the deterioration of the school's infrastructure over the years, the minister made a very welcoming statement to the audience.
$1 million becomes available to the management of the college to begin rehabilitation work on school infrastructure. And this is apart from the roughly $20 million that the government makes available to the college to run its affairs for an academic year.
The Ministry of Education, through its support behind an initiative aimed at directing young St. Lucians towards a path of productivity, targeted interventions to address gaps in social support extended to young St. Lucian males, form part of the recently launched Save Our Boys project. In a significant step towards expanding vocational training opportunities in St. Lucia, the Center for Adolescent Renewal and Education Care officially opened its new catering and hospitality block. This facility is a pivotal development in the upgrading of St. Lucia's capacity to provide impactful vocational training for marginalized youth project initiated in 2018. A collective goal of ensuring St. Lucia's education sector sustains safe and efficient function has prompted discussion between the National Principals Association and the Ministry of Education on the ideal path towards further improving operations. The meeting, led by Education Minister Honorable Sean Edward, brought together top ministry officials and the NPA's new leadership to discuss pressing challenges in schools across the island and solutions structured to address them. For the first time, special education needs and disabilities will be addressed by a policy document expected to standardize how the sector is addressed. St. Lucia's Special Education Needs and Disability Policy will guide the administration of resources, management, processes, and procedures to ensure that all children will have equal access to education and the opportunity to achieve success.
One of the beautiful things about the way the policy was designed is that it gives consideration to other stakeholders beyond personnel in education who can support the overall success of students. Because you may have a child who has no academic difficulty, but may have difficulty with other resources and may have welfare needs, may have psychological needs, may have medical needs, all of these that can potentially threaten the academic success of the child.
Top regional students in this year's May-June CXC regional examinations were honored as St. Lucia played host to the 2024 CXC Top Award ceremony. 14 students hailing from Grenada, Jamaica, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago traveled to St. Lucia to be recognized for the achievements in the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination Cape, Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate CSEC, and the Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence or CCSLC examinations.
Every problem has a solution.
We are demonstrating our commitment by going out there and getting higher educational opportunities for the young people of St. Lucia.
Have stepped into a realm of knowledge and skills that will empower
any passes. They were only high merit and distinction.
Essentially, it's a convention that seeks to protect and safeguard our intangible cultural heritage.
And with that, we bring our review to an end. We are more than grateful that you could have joined us and look forward to equally progressive and satisfying accomplishments within the Ministry of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training.